Welcome back. Aaron Jacobson here on 95.3 WDAE. And the big conversation this morning is the contract that Trevor Lawrence has received. 5 years, $275 million contract extension with the Jacksonville Jaguars, and it includes $200 million guaranteed. We are moving in an interesting direction with quarterbacks in the NFL, and we all expected it, money to be paid out to these big-time quarterbacks. Yeah, that's part of the game. That's part of any sport. But when we're talking about Trevor Lawrence and the name coming out of Clemson, I think is a lot bigger than the name we've seen in the NFL. In fact, I know it. When you look at the numbers of Trevor Lawrence, and he has certainly had some glimpses of impressive play in the NFL, but overall in its entirety, he's just been okay. He's just been okay. And for the Jacksonville Jaguars, the way it started with his career, having to deal with Urban Meyer as his head coach. And we know Urban Meyer, who was fired after only 13 games. That was not a great year for Trevor Lawrence. And that was a rookie season for Trevor Lawrence. So first overall pick in 2021 has to deal with the turmoil of Urban Meyer leading the way. And it showed in the numbers. He finished with a league-high 17 interceptions that season. Now, he certainly improved under Doug Peterson as coach, throwing for over 4,000 yards, 25 touchdowns, and only 8 interceptions in 2022. A very successful season for not only Trevor Lawrence, but the Jacksonville Jaguars as a whole. And last year, having a hot start to the season, but they didn't finish off strong. And in this first 3 seasons in the league, Trevor Lawrence has got 60 turnovers, and that includes an NFL high 21 in last year's season, 14 interceptions, 7 lost fumbles. And there's only 11 quarterbacks who have made their debut since 1978 that have turned the ball over more in their first 3 seasons. You're telling me that guy is worth $200 million guaranteed? And that's what we're talking about here. Because you could look at the overall contract from Trevor Lawrence and you could say $275 million. No, it's really it's what's the guaranteed money. That's the money that you were on the hook for as a franchise, as an organization, and that dollar amount is $200 million. And I get it. In this league, especially that position as a quarterback, you're going to get paid. And you're going to get paid sometimes for mediocre play. We've seen guys that are backups that get paid good money just to be the backup, knowing they're going to be the backup. But there's really only a few quarterbacks, maybe only one in this league, that I saw the contract and I went, yeah, whatever that is, he's probably worth more. And we all know who it is. It's Patrick Mahomes. Now, anybody not named Patrick Mahomes, I got to look at their contract and say, okay, in a salary cap league, is that quarterback worth that money? And you have to ask that question because you have to fill out the roster. This is an extremely important team sport. And every sport, that, of course, you're not talking about an individual sport. The team and what you have around you is imperative. And maybe none more so than the sport of football, where you got to have an entire team. And that's why repeating is so hard. That's why what Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs have done is so impressive. Because going out there and repeating when you have to have an entire stacked team year in and year out to go out there and compete, very impressive. And he might be the only one who I think is worth the money. Now, I know Josh Allen and Joe Burrow dealing with a lot of injuries, Lamar Jackson as well. Certainly ability-wise, they're worth the contract, but it's hard to give anybody that much guaranteed money at that position because you know getting hurt is just a part of the game. But Trevor Lawrence, and a lot of people are comparing his numbers to Daniel Jones. I'm not going to do that. Daniel Jones, having played in about 10 more games than Trevor Lawrence, you can look at the big contract Daniel Jones received. But also, it's hard to compare the numbers because of what I mentioned earlier. That first season, that rookie season for Trevor Lawrence under Urban Meyer was a disaster. And not all of it, most of it, was not his fault. Most of it being the fault of Urban Meyer. So I really can't compare the numbers, just the numbers. I can do the eye test, though. And eye test-wise, I don't even think Trevor Lawrence is a top 10 quarterback in this league right now. Now, has he shown the ability that he can be a top 10 quarterback in this league? And at times has been? Sure. But are you putting him ahead of Lamar Jackson? Joe Burrow? A healthy Joe Burrow? Josh Allen? Certainly not Patrick Mahomes. How about the Rams and Matt Stafford at this point? And I know when you're talking about longevity, Obviously, Trevor Lawrence has more years left than Matthew Stafford. But right now, if you had 1 year for a guy to lead a team, would it be Matt Stafford or would it be Trevor Lawrence? I'm not so sure I'd take Trevor Lawrence. How about Justin Herbert? I think I even got Justin Herbert ahead of Trevor Lawrence. And the way C.J. Stroud played last year for the Houston Texans, I don't care how young he is. Right now, he has shown me more on the field and shown that I trust him more to lead my team in only 1 year than Trevor Lawrence. Jalen Hurts. It didn't go well for them in the playoffs. I know it fell apart for the Philadelphia Eagles as they were bounced by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in round 1. But I'd go ahead and say, from what we've seen, Jalen Hurts is worth more than Trevor Lawrence. And Jalen Hurts got paid as well. Dak Prescott looking down at a big contract here in the future. Yeah, I'd say his productivity has been more than Trevor Lawrence. Jared Goff, can't leave him out. Went to the NFC Championship game last year. Has turned that Lions franchise completely around. So I don't like the way this league is shaping up as far as guys getting paid. Kirk Cousins came off an Achilles injury and got an insane contract, guaranteed money, from the Atlanta Falcons, who, by the way, were tampering with him and had to lose a fifth-round draft pick because of it. But that's besides the point. The money being spent on quarterbacks, it's a catch-22. You got to have a quarterback. It's a quarterback-driven league. But you spend all that money on a quarterback, you're going to have enough guys around him to win it all. And if not, then what's the point? Great, you got a fancy quarterback, but the goal is to win a Super Bowl. Is it not? Because in my mind, and I think a lot of fans out there would agree, winning a Super Bowl, that's the ultimate goal. And you got to have a good quarterback to do it. And we've seen great quarterbacks over the years. Tom Brady being the perfect example. #1 quarterback all time. Who has taken less. Who has given back money to be able to sign guys around him. We've seen other position players do it all the time. Restructuring deals, restructuring their contract to be able to remain with the team, but also help the team sign other guys that can help out, help win the ultimate goal, once again, which is a Super Bowl. So Trevor Lawrence, he was going to get the money. He was going to get paid, as are all these quarterbacks. And once the market is reset, which Trevor Lawrence has reset it, expect the next guy who's in line to reset it once again. But I'm concerned it's just happening at too fast of a pace. And I don't know if the league is going to be able to keep up. Now, we see expansion of the cap every year, and certainly that helps out. But with the amount of money being doled out to franchises that have been mediocre with their quarterback at the helm, Jacksonville being the perfect example of it, Dallas is going to pay Dak Prescott. They're going to have to, or they won't have a quarterback. But great regular season team. What has Dak done in the playoffs? What has that team been able to do in the playoffs? Nothing. They're a regular season team. And I fear for Jaguars fans that Trevor Lawrence will show you things during the regular season, but will he be able to stay intact as far as health? Will the productivity be able to show you that he's got the top 5 ability and can carry that into the playoffs? I don't know. But if I'm a franchise right now and you've got a quarterback that you're going to have to pay in the near future, yeah, I'd be very concerned. I'd be very concerned where this is trending, and it's not going away anytime soon. We'll continue the conversation, and we'll get into more coming up next. It's Aaron Jacobson here on 95.3 WDAE and AM 620.
I'm so intrigued by this, Pat.
Yeah, the kickoff has been the same for my lifetime. I mean, they've moved the ball from the 35 to the 30 and stuff like that. But, there's been some, minor changes.
Can I ask you something before you say anything? When you talk about your intrigue with the kickoff and it being fascinating, have you ever been fascinated? Whenever we're fascinated by the kickoff, typically it's the return of the kickoff. Have you ever been fascinated?
But even then, I'm not really fascinated by it.
Would you think you would ever be fascinated by the kicker involved in the kickoff?
No, and I don't know that I am still, to be honest with you. I'm fascinated by the whole thing and how it's going to look and the way teams are going to try to defend it, the way teams are going to try to block it. Do they use different guys than we're used to seeing them used in the return game?
In the kick, they might use a player to kick, like a regular random player to kick.
Yeah, we'll see.
After we tell you about why Justin Tucker is bulking up.
But you still need to get the ball down there. You can't just get anybody to kick the football. But yes, Justin Tucker, of course, the kicker for the Baltimore Ravens, the best kicker in football maybe ever. I mean, the guy is just outstanding. He has been bulking up this offseason because in the XFL, which is where, and the rules are slightly different, but basically the XFL, which is now, of course, the UFL, that is where the NFL picked up the kind of framework for their new kickoff rules, which if you don't know, it's not going to look like it ever did before. You won't have guys on the kicking side of the field except for the kicker. Everyone else is going to line up right across from each other, about 10 yards across from each other on the side of the field where the ball will be retrieved. So apparently, and I'm a little bit surprised by this, Aaron, to be honest with you, but kickers have been involved in 25% more tackles since the revamped kickoff.
No, 25% of the tackles.
Oh, 20%. Oh, I misread
so
that.
So a quarter of the plays, the kicker on the kickoff play, the kicker is involved in the play, in the tackle.
I am shocked by that, and I'm going to tell you this. I'm not going to say this to every kicker, because not all kickers are built the same. But if I'm Harbaugh, I'm telling Tucker, you run to the sideline. I don't care. I don't need you making tackles. We'll figure it out. Get the hell out of the way.
And that's why I tell you, I'm concerned. This is for me being safe, man. If I'm hearing that, and I know you said the XFL a little bit different, but if they're adopting this similar concept, almost the same, and the kickers are involved in 25% of the tackles with the revamped kickoff play, that's not what I want to hear. And if I'm a Ravens fan and I'm hearing Justin Tucker's doing some different things, he's hitting the weight room for the first time in his career, which he said he is. He's trying to add some bulk. Who knows? It's a lot like the conversation with Randy Rosarena and adding bulk, which it makes more sense for a guy who hits bombs.
You think he's been working on his legs his whole career?
Yeah, but
I bet he hasn't. Maybe not working on upstairs, but he's been working out his legs his whole career.
For sure.
That's his moneymaker.
But you add other elements. It might slow you down a little bit, this and that, add some pounds. Maybe you're not as quick to the ball. I don't know. I'm just throwing it's just something different from the typical routine for years of what you noted, and I agree with you, one of, if not the greatest kicker in the history of the game.
I'd be very surprised if it impacts his ability to kick the football. I just don't want him anywhere near that tackle if I'm the Ravens. I'm like, listen, if we give up a kickoff return for a touchdown every now and then that's what has to happen. But I don't want you out there because listen, he's significant. Like he hits some long ass field goals.
Significant.
You get just any kicker and it's a totally different thing. So I just get him the hell out of the way if I'm the Ravens.
The Chiefs are talking about, and we saw them a couple weeks ago, they were considering using safety Justin Reed as the kickoff guy.
If you can get it down there.
And, you're using a safety to do it. And it's like, okay, well, if he gets it down there, now we've got another tackler that can be involved in this play. So what is so intriguing to me is how special teams coaches are going to game plan, especially early in the season. Now, they might, once they see this thing play out in real time in the game, they might abandon their plans and change them as we go on. But I think every team is going to be different. And I think some teams, as we saw from the Chiefs practicing, Justin Tucker bulking up, I think some teams are going to be unique in how they approach this thing. Now, if I'm the Ravens, I'm with you. I'm telling Justin Tucker, do not be unique. Don't go hit anybody.
I'd be willing to bet, because remember, everything at the NFL is different. The coaching is different. Certainly the ability of the players is significantly different. I'd be willing to bet that the kickers, even with nothing changing, right, and whether it be a kicker or a guy in that position kicking the football, I'd be willing to bet they're nowhere near 25% of the tackling plays this season in the NFL. I'd be willing to bet that because, again, you've just got better players and better coaches, and they'll figure out better schemes. And I truly believe we will see significantly fewer kickers involved in tackles in the NFL than we did. Just because, listen, you know how close they pay attention to stats and analytics and all this crap. They see this too, right? So they know. And they'll figure out a way to make sure that that's not the case. Because you don't want your kicker hurt.
I mean, if we see a kicker get hurt on a play on a tackle in this,
happens anyways.
Yeah, but in this new kickoff rule, because if we see it going up the number of kickers making tackles, and then somebody gets hurt from it, I mean that could, especially when you're talking about Justin Tucker, valuable, one of the most valuable players on that team.
You don't want him getting hurt. B, just even if you know they're not going to get hurt, even if they were invincible. You don't want them trying to make tackles, period. Like, that's not the guy you want bringing guys to the ground is your kicker. So
you know me, I'm safe, man. I hate it.
Yeah, I'd be willing to bet that it's closer to 10%, if that than 25. I think NFL coaches are good enough and players are good enough that they're going to make sure that those kickers are not involved.
I'm discouraging that. If I'm a special teams coach, I'm not encouraging it. If I'm a special teams coach for the Ravens, I'm going up to Justin Tucker. I'm like, hey, stay out of the weight room. Work on your legs. Stop with the shoulder shrug.
Well, I mean, it doesn't matter if he's in the weight room. Just don't try to make the tackle.
Well, you said he never used to be in the weight room. Now people are like surprised to see him in there. He's doing shoulder shrugs.
I'm okay with that. I don't think that's going to impact his kicking. I just don't want him out there taking hits and trying to make tackles.
It's got to be the most belittling feeling in the world when you walk into a training room and everyone, your friends, your teammates look at you like, dude, where have you been? Like, what are you doing in here?
No, I don't think it's where have you been, because I think they know that, like, you didn't need. They're just like, oh wow, surprised to see you here.
Look at you. That's got to be the most. I feel like a tiny man every day. That has got to be the worst, smallest feeling ever.
Yeah, I feel like if you're Justin Tucker, like that dude's got a lot more respect in that locker room than most kickers do, I think.
Just pull an Urban Meyer and kick him with his leg.
And, like, when you're around NFL players, you realize, and kickers, I love you, it's not the same. When you're a normal human being around NFL players, you just know that they're just different. So you don't feel, like, inadequate because you're like, yeah, I'm around superhumans. Every other human is not adequate either.
I just like to look at my kickers and think of them as the kicker, all of them being the kicker from The Replacements, with a cigarette in his mouth. And even though they're from this country, they still have an accent anyway.
Yeah?
That's how I like my
You want
kickers.
Justin Tucker to have an accent?
Yeah, and a cigarette
It's like
in his
our
mouth.
producer?
Like, I want to see a cigarette through his face mask while he's going to kick a field goal. Just smoke billowing out of his helmet.